right? And it's always crazy to me how, and this is not a social media class, but this is kind of a class to kind of help you continue doing other things while you're successful in one. I'll give it to you, like I'll use Dailies for example, I'll use Gus for example, I'll use Miguel for an example, and I use many individuals. I'll use Gus and I'll use Dailies for now, right? Well, I'll use Dailies, where Dailies was never used to talk on the phone, and I'm sure a lot of you guys in here, who's scared of talking on the phone? So be honest, just be honest with yourself, or doesn't even know if never got a listing by the phone, or for sale by owners, raise your hand, be honest. Jen, you got a listing by the phone?
Yeah, I did.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This week.
All right. So this class, bar none, is better than everything else because you could have 0 friends. You could have moved from New York, like Jairo, and have 0 individuals here that are in part of your circle. And you could become extremely successful by just calling people every day, consistently. And that's the reason why I wanted to make sure Mac gets here. He's done a lot of great trainings in the past, and it's so essential. But today's wake-up call is because there's a lot of individuals that do great on social media, but don't do phone calls, and they are successful. Like I'll give an example. Robert Garay, incredible with his circle of influence. He sells 80% of his business through his Instagram and Facebook. 80%. He's a $5, $6, $7 million a year producer just by social media. He doesn't touch the phone for the life of him. He's finally doing it. So you want to make sure that you learn this, because if you're a social media warrior, you're not neglecting this part. But if I had to pick one, I'll pick the phones all day, every day. Because if you're good on the phones, you're good in front of people. If you rebuttal them good on the phone, when they're in front of you on a listing appointment, you're better because of that. And I'll use Dailies for example, where she was horrible on the phone. Sorry, Dailies. She was like everybody else, starts off bad at something. You're never good at it until you practice it. I remember there'll be times I'm like, oh my God, this is a liability issue. We're out here at Dailies, or like, but now she is the most wittiest, fastest person. Likes to be in private and gets this thing done because she's determined to help herself, help her family, and be successful in this business. And she hits those phones every day, 7:30 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, she's on it. And there's times I go to Westchester at 5 or 6, and I don't see her every day. But I know she's doing it every day because she's consistently growing her business. But she also, one of the things she started getting good on the phone, she wasn't really big on social media. Now you'll see her put in inspections. Now you'll see her per closing. Now I can't see less of her. She's always on social media as well. So you got to cover every aspect. If you're on the elevator anywhere you live and you don't tell the people in the elevator what's up, you're also dropping up all there, because you could be good on social media, you could be good on the phones, and you're dropping 4 or 5 sales a year just because you're shy in the elevator. But the one thing about the phone is going to help you everywhere else. You'll be faster to respond, you'll be faster to say the right things, and you'll lose the fear of rejection. You know, we get that fear like as a child, like no baby doesn't walk outside of any ailments because they're determined to walk. Has to be the same way in real estate. So the good thing about Max training, the biggest thing in this business that is hard for people to overcome is actually getting on the phone. And it's a game changer. So Mac, you ready? Well, guys, if I always like to bring in our partners here before we start things. New World, that's me. So if you say, hey, New World, that's my title company, and I want to make sure you guys always have that service. They've done very well. We help you with the marketing. They're helping you with closing. Vanessa, who's not here, is amazing. And then we also have our now in-house lender, Kevin Jimeno. Some kind words from you, sir. Here on a Saturday, by the way, mortgage. Hey, and by the way, mortgage guys usually don't wake up early on Saturdays, so they have an easy life, guys. So thank you, sir. Yeah, man.
Look at this.
Kev, I don't think mortgages are easy, so.
I got one agent in this room right now texting me leads as we speak. That's what's up right there.
Who is it?
Do I put them out there? Yeah. You want to raise your hand?
Yeah, zoom in on her.
No.
And we're gonna get on the phone and call them right now too.
So guys, no, honestly, one of the reasons why we did this incredible partnership, the collective, including myself, where I'm also a loan originator, so I'll be also helping. But Kevin is pretty much the brains of it, right? He helps me. He helps all you guys. There's so many people in this room that I know he has done loans for. It was an incredible partnership to do because he had already done 75 to 100 loans in this brokerage before this. And with this, it just puts him part of our lifestyle family. So I'm always grateful for him here. If you guys have any mortgage questions and stuff, go to him. But honestly, you know, before I hand it over, and this is really more Max training, but I always find a reason to talk or to be on the fly, all right?
Always welcome to.
Guys, you know, I can say much about him, but we don't have the time. And Mac has been somebody that helped grow this family. He's still working and growing our family, bringing us agents. Who here came because of Mac? You know, hands will go up, and there'll be trainings that could be 5. Mac brought over 100 individuals to our brokerage, and it takes a lot of phone skills to do that. He comes from a world of one thing is to bring somebody to a brokerage and show them the dream and tell them what you can or can't do in this brokerage to make more money. Another thing is to get another person to pay $30, $40, $50, $60,000 for education, and that's where he comes from, plus mortgages. But he used to recruit for colleges, and you had to give him a credit card or your social security number and put a loan that's probably chasing you for the rest of your life, right? And I'm not bad to institutions, it's just a disclaimer. The college system is great. So he's a master on the phone. There's probably a few people that I could put in the same category. He's gonna try to take the credit for my dailies, like I said earlier, that he put on the right track, and many other individuals in this office. Desi, where you at?
She just left.
Oh, she just left?
Disney. Yeah,
Oh, she went to Disney?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There's a season pass.
Okay, so without further ado, this guy's gonna put you on the right path. There's a lot of things he's gonna shake up in your head, and like everything, you could be in this training for 10 hours if it was 10 hours. And if you don't apply it today, not say, you know what, Monday I'm going, forget Monday, do it today. As soon as this is done, start calling people. Call your cousin, your uncle, your brothers, your sisters. Those are your best clients. Sometimes, who was it that I called? Sometimes you sell to so many people, the people you've closed, you don't want to call them. You want to call a new person that doesn't even trust you. The person that trusts you with their biggest buying decision in your life, agents don't even follow up. How often do you see that, Kevin? That's crazy. So, without further ado, Matt,
thank you.
Rock and roll, baby. Let's go.
So, hey, you guys work for an amazing broker. He does a lot for you guys, as you already know. I think the partnership with the collective is great. By the way, congratulations on going the collective route versus just the lender route. I'm sure it gives you a lot more options. So, but guys, here the training is going to be simple. I try to keep it simple. There's a lot more to this that we can get into, later on in other trainings. This is just kind of like your foundation to really start getting going on the phones, and this is going to help you out a little bit as well with your in-person sales ability as well, because it's more of a mindset. I cover a lot of the phones because as realtors we work a lot on the phones. Our initial contact is usually on the phone, things like that. But keep in mind, what I'm going to share with you today, you could apply it in a face-to-face situation. It's more about negotiations as well, So I handed out to everybody. Everybody got one of these? Yeah. For the most part, yeah, no. Okay. Anybody missing one?
Yeah, me. Yeah.
You guys are missing one? Do me a favor, just run over there and make a couple copies. Couple extra ones. Thank you. So guys, and for those that don't have it, you'll have it soon. Let's get started. Some of the basics. Okay, when you start to talk to a client that potentially is going to go into negotiations, right? Their mindset is going to shift a little bit, right? And the minute you start talking about potentially something that has to do with purchasing a home, their situation in that sense, that mind shift, right, goes into something I refer to as they want to understand where the power of gain and their fear of loss is going to be. So the easiest way to kind of relate what I'm talking about is imagine your client is on a imaginary ladder for this particular situation that they're going to negotiate for, right? And they're always looking to improve that by going up, right? They don't want to go down, they want to go up. Their goal is always up, right? Unfortunately, what we do, sometimes you got to take a step back. You ultimately end up a couple steps forward, but it's navigating that with your client that's important. Right? And something else too, when you're trying to understand that with your client, you got to ask the right questions. You got to gauge that, because it's not where you think your client's at in that ladder. It's where your client thinks that they're on that ladder. You know what I mean? So the first thing you need to discover with your client is where do they feel they're at in the current situation of what they're trying to determine and negotiate for. Right? You got to align yourself with that. Right? Once you understand that, you got to ask them, hey, what are the goals you're trying to get out of this? Right? What are you trying to achieve? Sometimes those things are obvious, sometimes they're not as obvious as they might seem, Every client might have a particular need, a particular want, right? And those are the things you have to try to figure out with them, okay, in the initial conversation with them. This is a very important and crucial step, okay? And when you negotiate with people, you got to find these things out. If you don't do a good job of that, you're going to start talking about stuff that they don't have an interest for. And their time span with you is probably not going to be long, you know? When you start talking about stuff that they have an interest for, they're going to give you more time. You know, how many people here have started talking to someone on the phone and within the first 30 seconds you're getting rushed off the phone or being told that they got something they have to go do or something like that's happened to them? I mean, it's happened to me, right? It happens to all of us. How many people here actually work the phones? Couple? Okay, most of us that don't work the phones, is there any particular reason?
Scared.
Probably scared, right? I mean, it's normal, anxious, you know, like you get a little nervous.
I just started last week.
You just started last week, how's it going for you?
Really good. I think it's more mental.
No, definitely more mental.
Yeah, than anything.
And
So.
Zuli's been a realtor for a while, and I call on her real quick. She's been doing a little bit of recruiting for me as well, right? And how nervous were you the first time you started calling out people and kind of trying to do what we do?
Pretty nervous.
And she comes with a ton of experience already, more in person, you know, things like that. But, you know, the phones, no matter what it is, guys, the first couple calls, you're always going to be nervous. You're going to have butterflies. And it's okay. You know what I mean? And you can mess up a call. It's okay. You probably have someone else that you could call. You know what I mean? So it's repetition a lot of the times, too. You know, nobody's going to be perfect. You're coming into something you don't do often. And you got to kind of, you know, work your way into it. A good way to help out with that, and we'll cover that a little bit later, is going to be role playing. Always partner up with people that are on the same path. They're starting just like you are today in this room. Get together. Go over the segments of the call that you're trying to get better at, and that way you practice. The best reference I have for that is playing a sport. How many people in here play a sport? Play a sport, right? When you play a sport, do you ever practice technique? You ever do drills, right? Or at some point in time you did, maybe more in high school than you do now, right? Now you just go and you play, right? But those drills are important. They're technique, right? You got to learn footwork. You got to learn, you know, whatever it is you're trying to learn in the sport. So that way when you play a sport, those things come natural to you, right? Role playing and what we do in phone sales or in sales in general is that. It's technique. It's drills, you know? So you work consistently on a segment of the phone call. You work one-on-one with each other to hear different variations of what you're running into on the phones. And that way when you run into it on the phones, you're not spooked. You're not shaped, you know, by what the conversation's going. You know what I mean? So definitely, if you guys haven't paired up with someone, already start eyeing out maybe someone you have a good relationship with in the room, and you know, get their numbers, and you know, you start calling them every once in a while, and do a little role play right on the phone when you're on the way to an appointment or on the way to a situation or whatever it is. It helps. Trust me, it helps, and it's practice. You know, so instead of you waiting to make, you know, Kev, when you make front end prospecting calls, out of 100 dials, how many contacts do you get?
Might get 30 to 40% actually connections, with probably on top of that like less than 10% meaningful conversations.
Meaningful conversation, right? So if you're trying to practice with the live situations, you're gonna do a lot of work to get that practice out of 10 situations, right? And you're not going to be good at it because you don't have enough practice. So how much work are you putting in to even learn that learning curve to get good at something, right? The role plays come into play. The role plays, I could do 10 role plays with them in, you know, 20 minutes and learn a lot from those role plays to be able to apply it to when I do run into a live contact, I'm a little bit more prepared. I have a little bit more of an advantage, you know? Something else too, guys, the more you work the phones, the more experience you have versus the person you're talking to, right? When you talk to a homeowner that's looking to purchase a home for the first time, how many possible conversations have they had about this in their lifetime? 10? 5? You know what I mean? At that point, you might have had 100, 200, 300 calls with people talking about the same thing. You are way more prepared in those conversations than they will ever be. You're definitely the expert, not only in your knowledge of what you're talking about in your product, but in your technique and being able to talk to people on the phones and being effective at it, you know? So the more you practice this, the more you apply it to it, the better you're gonna get on the phones, the more of an advantage you're gonna have as well. So have confidence in that, you know? No matter where you're at in the stages of getting good on a phone, doesn't mean you're bad. You're way better than probably the other people you're talking to, right? So always keep that in mind and have confidence when you're on the phone. So talking a little bit more about that power gain, fear of loss. Obviously, power gain is associated with pleasure, achieving goals, achieving desired situations and results. Fear of loss, which is a technique that we don't use as much. We always focus on the power gain, right? We always talk to people about what they're getting out of it, how they're gonna, get what they want out of it. We're always talking about the positive things, But the fear of loss is something that's effective. It's more of an advanced technique. People don't use it as often. I don't use it as often. It's something that periodically pops up. Things like a takeaway, things like that. How is the fear of loss a good technique? I'll give you just a quick example, not to go too into it. But imagine if you're pointing someone in the direction of their goal, right? They're trying to buy a house, and you've been stagnant a little bit in these conversations, right? This sounds repetitious, right? Sometimes it's good to turn the person around and show them the other direction, right? Do you not want the house? Do you want to stay renting? You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes very tactful to do that because it's going to re-engage them to moving forward versus going backwards, right? And you're either going to stay where you're at, you're going to go down, or you're going to go up. Like, there's only so many options in what you're doing, So that's kind of like where the fear of loss sometimes comes into play, and it is effective when you feel you're a little stagnant and moving forward with your prospect on something. Okay, and there's a lot of techniques we can go into on how to do that, but it's always more on a case by case.
It's more like pushing, right?
It's more like pulling than pushing. I think we push when we're trying to motivate them to go forward, right? We're behind them, kind of pushing, right? When you do the fear of loss, it's more like pulling. It's like, hey, you don't want to really go that way, right? They're like, no, I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way. Okay, so you do want to go this way. So, you know what I mean? You don't need to push. They're walking with you.
You call it inspired listening and you say, I got a client that wants in your area. I'm not sure if they really want your house, to be honest with you, but I'm actually reaching out to see if, you're already telling them right from the start, like, I don't think my client wants your house. Then all of a sudden their mindset changes, like, wait a minute, I want that guy to want my house.
See, like I said, there's a lot of technique to fear of loss, using that. I would tell you, always speak to your direct manager about a situation you might be in that you feel is a little stagnant, and review the possible techniques for that situation, and you learn how to utilize a little bit of the fear of loss, how to make people, kind of shift their mentality a little bit, because it happens. When you're negotiating with people, that stuff happens, okay? Going into phone sales, which is primarily what we want to focus on. There's a few initial things you want to be aware of. Okay, when you're breaking the ice on the phones, you usually have an initial attention span of about 10 to 20 seconds. Okay, now what does that mean? If you don't make some type of an impact within that time frame, you're gonna get a lot of the hey, can you call me back? Hey, is there a better time where I could reach you? You know what I mean? Things like that are gonna happen to you in those conversations. I tell you that some of it is accurate. You might have caught them at work. They're in a work environment where they really can't talk to you, and some of it is accurate. But I've talked to people while they're at work for an hour. If they really want something, they're gonna wanna talk to you. They make it a priority. They step away from work and they take their lunch break or their break, or they go to the bathroom, or they do whatever they have to do to talk about what they want to talk with you about. It's just like anything else. When people, you know what? Guess what? Wing it. Do your best. You know what I mean? Talk to people.
It's funny because when I speak to Spanish people, my Spanish is I can communicate, but vocabulary is just horrendous. But I joke around and they, I say, you speak Spanish? And they say, yeah. And I say, bueno, my Spanish is not very good looking. I go back to Celia Cruz. And they laugh and they go, bueno, my English is worse. So,
yeah.
And I joke with them and I say, so you can understand, so, you'll be on my side if I mess up. Oh, no. And it gets into that friendly conversation.
Funny enough, with that, you found common ground.
And you just go right to the process.
Like you're finding common ground. They're feeling comfortable with you. And listen, at the end of the day, people buy people. Understand that. People buy people. If people really like you and they want to work with you, they're going to work with you. You know what I mean? So always remember that. You don't need to be perfect at what we do. But just do your best. Try to connect with people. Try to have something meaningful, a good conversation with them that's going to help them. And that way you get more business out of it at the end of the day. You had a...
That's something that works for me too, is my personality. It took me a while to translate my personality into the phones, because once I got over the fear, I was able to be more cool on the phones. And now the same way that I am, like this in person, I can be on the phone. And I make jokes with them. And these are people that I don't know. Something that I say, like for somebody owner, for example, like they'll tell me, I'll ask them like, oh, why, how come you're moving? What are you doing? Are you buying something else around here? You're getting out of Miami? And they're like, some people hate Miami and they want to get out of Miami. So they say something like, oh no, I'm going to Alaska. And I'm like, really? Take me with you, man. And they will laugh. And then the conversation kind of like,
softens up.
Yeah. Like making a little joke every here and there, and then they don't hate you anymore because now they laugh with you. I make jokes throughout the conversation, and it lightens up.
And Idelis wouldn't be saying.
No, none of that.
I remember.
None of that. She wouldn't be saying.
You remember pretty good.
Yeah, no, I remember really good, you know. But, you know, she was guilty of it, and Lorita's too. Lorita wasn't able to come today. That they had a little bit of that salesman looking for their angle, only interested in trying to get what they're getting out of the conversation, and that becomes transparent to the client, believe it or not. You know what I mean? I don't know how many of you have heard me on the phones. Zuli actually heard me on the phones for the first time when I trained her, and she was blown back a little bit, and I was just like, Zuli, you never heard me on the phones before? And she was like, no, I never heard you on the phones before, right? Really, but at the end of the day, I don't want to come across in the phones like a shark. Like you're in the water with me when I live here and you're swimming here, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That is not a comfortable situation for your client, right? So when you become a real professional on the phone, sometimes these techniques also help ease that off a little bit. You know, I don't want to come across like I know it all on the phones. I don't want to come across like I've had this conversation 10,000 times, you know, and you're in my waters, if that makes sense. You know, I don't want that. It doesn't make you feel comfortable. So I play dumb a little. You know what I mean? I dumb it down a little bit. I act a little bit more confused sometimes, or hey, clarify for me, or I don't get what you're saying, when I know exactly what they're gonna say. You know what I mean? Those things sometimes are little techniques you learn along the way to make your client feel a little bit more warm, a little bit more comfortable, and things like that. And then Adeli's has probably incorporated a lot more of that, bringing her own personality, which is super goofy, from what I know, right? And offsetting a little bit of that sharp professional side of you that's looking for the business and trying to get your things done.
What I struggled with Mac, and we talked about this, was the rapport building. I got to the point where I was okay with building rapport, but then I was like, I don't know how to get back to the conversation without it sounding like, you know, like I just tried to talk to you about your dog for 30 minutes so I could talk to you about the house. And I've got
And you run out of time. They're like, oh, I gotta go pick up my
Yeah, I would get...
I love dogs.
And I read a book that talks a lot about that. I read a couple sales books. Fanatical Prospecting is number one. And then I read another one, The Wolf of Wall Street, the guy who was in the movie. The whole book, there's some parts that are better than others, but there's one section on phone calls that's really, really good. And it talks about don't get caught up in rapport building, that you're just faking like you're interested in the person and you're not really talking about the business.
It's not genuine. You're doing it more. It's transparent that you're techniquing it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to keep the goal in mind. Talk to them about, hey, nice, but bring it back to the conversation, because if you just spend 30 minutes, and I used to do that, I spent 30 minutes to this lady talking about...
Oh, because you figured if you became really good friends with
then she'd give me the appointment. And then I just wasted 30 minutes and got nothing. But I knew what her dog's name was, I knew she was going to the doctor, I knew her kid's name, but I got no appointment.
Hey, but listen, when we're learning, and that's part of the learning curve, that's part of you experiencing it firsthand, you're going to test out boundaries, right? You're sometimes going to go to the limits of something to see how it works there, to come back over here to see how it kind of works here, and then you're trying to find the sweet spot. And that's going to happen. That's with repetition. Whatever you're doing, you're going to go through it, and you're going to become more familiarized with what you're doing, you know? And some of the things, and I want you guys to skip down now, we're going to pass the phone framework, and I'm going to go into key techniques for good conversation. And on one of those, it talks about build rapport, but stay on track, close to the bottom, right? And it talks exactly about that, right? So the best way I could explain that to you guys is, imagine you're trying to get from point A to point B, right? Which is your close, or your initial sale, or whatever it is, right? And you veer off track to build rapport. Don't go 10 yards off track. You know what I mean? Go 2 or 3 yards off track, and then transition back to your path to B. if that makes sense. You know, so it's good to build rapport, but don't make the whole conversation about your dogs and everything else going on, right? You want them to feel comfortable with you, but you don't need to overextend yourself in that sense. Remember, there's a reason for your call. There's a reason why you're taking up their time, and there's an interest from their part that they're giving you the time to be on the phones and talk with them about, you know. And it's not necessarily their dogs, right? So keep that in mind, all right? Now, let's go over the rest of the key techniques for good conversations. Before I transition there, does anybody have some comments, questions?
I want to ask something.
Sure.
Okay, so talking about you know, keeping people longer on the phone. For me, I don't know if it's the same for another agent. One of the barriers or obstacles, you know, like I'm good with people, I could talk to people, I'm coming from the hospitality field, but I think that one of the things that is gonna make you feel comfortable is knowing your product, whatever you're selling. I think that's a huge fact, and that's my obstacle right now, meaning like, you know, like I'm only being real estate like for 1 year, so then I'm like, okay, I could have a good conversation with people and talk to them, but what about when they start throwing questions on me and maybe they have more knowledge than me? How am I gonna go around that?
Let me ask you a question about yourself, and only you can answer this, right? How confident are you in that? It doesn't sound like you're too confident, right?
Well,
you feel like you lack something, right?
Why, yes, that knowledge, you know, but then I say,
who are you talking to? Are they a realtor?
You don't know that.
Do they have a license?
No. That's why I was reading an article about that. You know, like you have to know how to stand and think. I do this full time.
Bro, you are
Blah, blah.
way more of an expert than they will ever be.
Right.
No matter where you're at. Even if you're just out of school with your license. You know way more than they do. Period. So if you already had your license for a year, talk to them con confianza. And anything you don't know, don't answer. Answer vaguely. Or say, hey, great question. You know what? I'm going to research that for you. Remind me in our next conversation. I'll make sure I have a direct answer for you.
Right, and that's what I thought about. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Pero tenga confianza, man. Because at the end of the day, you're a professional. They're not. They're talking to you because of what you know, right? So don't ever have that mindset. Shift as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Try to shift mentally and get away from that thought process.
Like it's human.
You are more than qualified to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
All right, could there be someone else next to you that knows way more about a particular aspect of what you're talking about? Absolutely. But even those people, even me myself, even if I know everything in the book, sometimes it's not good to info dump and share all that with every client. Because guess what? You're going to create a lot more objections and you're going to open up a lot more can of worms that you don't want to even be dealing with. So sometimes not knowing everything and keeping it vague is really good. As a matter of fact, KISS. Keep it super simple, right? It avoids you from info dumping, and it avoids you from sharing everything that you know to complicate a situation. When the simplicity of it is to just give the people what they need. You know what I'm saying? If you ask me, hey, is this process going to take long? No, it doesn't take long at all. That actually might suffice the answer. And they're like, oh, okay.
That's it.
But if it doesn't, they'll tell you, well, do you have an idea about how long it's going to take? Usually X amount of time, right? But I don't need to go in, well, sir, yes. Actually, depending on your case and your scenario, it could have these tendencies and these factors that could prolong it from a period of like, I don't sometimes want to know all that. Because guess what? After you tell me that, I'm going to be like, hold on. But on that part of the first part that you explained, what is it about this that you were trying to say about that? Because now I'm confused. And that conversation just went from a simple way of handling it to a very complex way of handling it. And you don't want to find yourself in those scenarios all the time, especially if you feel your product knowledge is not at that caliber, right? But you have control of how you steer that conversation. You know, and keeping it super simple is definitely one of those techniques. And sometimes it's a healthier conversation, because you're not overwhelming your client with a bunch of stuff they don't really need to know about at the point that they're at in the process. As those things play out on that case by case, you will explain it to them. And every case by case, for those that have done some transactions here, how many of your deals are identical?
None.
I know you did a post, I think, recently about that, right? What was that post?
I have never had a smooth deal.
Oh my God, we need
That's
this.
crazy. Does that even exist? I don't think it's
But how many of them are like identical?
None.
None.
Zero. They're like snowflakes. They're like people. I mean, you're dealing with people, so they're not going to be identical.
Yeah.
They're identical in the fact that they're all
technically, like maybe with a
complicated.
lender
was just thinking
situation
that,
or things like that, aren't those even different?
What is it?
Like even with the lender situations, right?
Yeah, they're all
Like,
different.
They're all different, right? So why overwhelm someone with all the potential things that could happen through a mortgage transaction? They don't need to know all that. Safeguard them from that. Make the process more enjoyable, right? You deal with all that. And you set expectations with them within a certain window and a certain guideline that no matter where they fall, you can still handle it.
I think,
You
can
know
I
what I'm
add
saying?
something to what he's saying?
Sure.
I guess I felt the same way when I first started.
Okay.
But the key is, and I'm not kissing anybody's ass, but you know I love you, but is partnering up with a lender that has your back. And the minute I really started trusting him and letting him handle like those tough questions and situations and kind of like stepping back, everything started going smoother. And when the client asks you like all of those really specific, because usually it's that the mortgage side that gets us a little, iffy. Just tell them like he said, that's a great question. Let me go ahead and have my lender, my preferred lender, give you a call and explain that to you. And don't worry, you are in great hands. We're gonna take care of you. We're gonna protect you and your money.
Okay.
Because that's what they're thinking, that
That
they're
line's
gonna lose.
good.
They're gonna
Your
lose their money.
lender is a partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? His support is crucial for your business. And you should have an established communication with him
Yeah.
of how you are soft selling his services to your client. But a soft sale is not going into extreme detail about what he does. A soft sale is just setting him up with an alley-oop so he can dunk it for you. That's pretty much what you're doing with your client. But to do that doesn't require the knowledge that he has. Nor do you want to go there. You want to keep it super simple.
Harder if you try
You
to
make it harder because now he has to backpedal on some of the things you told him that are inaccurate so he could set up his business and run it smoothly like he's the expert to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important that, like Deani said, she might have been creating certain situations for him to handle that he was like, why are you creating these situations? Slow it down, man. Keep it more simple. You don't need to go into all that. Just say this, just say that. Use this technique. And when she starts applying that and taking a step back, it allows him to now get that alley-oop and be like, hey, I could dunk these all day, right? Because I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta also like have that communication with that partner that you have doing the other aspects of it, whether it's lending, title, home inspections, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? This is your business, guys. You gotta have that mindset to put together a team that you work with that understands how you work and establish expectations on both sides. Hey, I expect to work with you like this. They are gonna tell you, hey, I expect to work with you like this, right? And these are how you create those healthy, smooth flowing transitions that clients are gonna be appealed and refer you more business because of the way you have it set up. So keep that in mind.
All right,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
Afterwards, do go to the lender or whoever it is and ask those questions so you can learn from it. So that next time around, you kind of have like a general idea, but still go back to the
Okay.
expert.
Yeah, you become knowledgeable in each situation, But again, be careful because as you become more knowledgeable, you're gonna have a tendency to share what you just learned, right? So if Kev was to give you a 1-hour class right now on mortgages, guess what? The next client you talk to, well, do I got some good information for you today? You know what I'm saying? And then that keeping it simple, just out the door. Kev's gonna be like, ay, Dios mío, what is going on right now? You know what I mean? So you guys gotta be careful with, sometimes the knowledge we share, Kev will share, a title company will share with you, is knowledge for you to understand the mechanics and set up the business a little smoother for you. But it doesn't mean you need to be sharing all that with each client because you're not going to remember everything, guys. And you're going to mess it up and you're not going to explain it right and things like that are going to happen. You know what I mean? So be mindful of these things because they're effective. You know what I mean? It saves a big headache.
What about when you're competing against agents that are stepping into the shoes of the lender and then they're making you look bad because they're like, well, this person went ahead and advised me, on lending, and that's kind of thing.
What can you possibly say to something like that? Anybody?
I get that all the time sometimes, or people that have information that is from a realtor as opposed to from a lender, I focus on my job. You know, I have an expert. Jack of all trades, master of none. That's what I kind of focus on, and just bring back the attention on, hey, this is me. I'm going to take care of you in this aspect. And then I'm going to let them take care of you in what they focus on.
I want you guys to understand something, and we're going to be getting into it more when we get into the actual phone framework of things, and it'll make more sense to you, hopefully. When you're dealing with the power game, the fear of loss, and understanding where someone's situation is, and probing them, and asking the right questions, and aligning yourself with what their goals are, okay? When you tie it into what you do, you have to create value in what you do, and how you have your system set up, and how you provide a service to your clients that's an outstanding service. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to compete directly with something that someone else is doing that you're not doing. You just gotta highlight what you do that's really good and make your client appeal to that. You know what I'm saying? You gotta sell yourself, your services, your values, and what you do. Kind of like what she's doing, right? So sometimes it's not about copying that realtor, saying, oh my God, I'm losing people because I don't know enough about lending. No, there's a lot of successful realtors that don't know much, if anything, about lending. You know what I'm saying? And you don't think they run into a client that's spoken to another realtor that supposedly knows a lot more about lending than they do? It happens. You know what I mean? But they somehow, some way build value in working with them, and why you should work with them, and the fact that they're able to help you out with this and this and that and that. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of a mindset too. You know, be careful not to get caught up in something like that, because you might end up overextending yourself and falling into a lot of the things that we've been talking about.
I want to give another testimonial to Mr. Jimenez.
He's helped. Come more often, bro.
No.
A lot of good props out here for you, Kev.
But I understand what he's going through, because in the beginning I would get questions that I didn't know how to answer, and it made me feel kind of off. But Kevin has been really good at teaching me the most important things to know, which are the basic things. Like, I feel you need to know the difference between FHA and conventional so you can explain it. Not getting into interest rates. You need to know how you get qualified for a loan. What are the most important things? That's the income, credit score, explain to them a little bit of the process. I have a spiel. Like, every buyer that I get, I have a little conversation that I have with them. I tell them, you know what you need to qualify. Explain to them the process, the difference between each loan, and that's it. You don't need to get into any deeper, because that's the job of the lender. From then on, you pass it on to the lender. I have a great lender.
I want to hear your spiel.
No.
I want to hear your spiel. I was just talking to Sully about this, right? And what we do, there are certain little segments that we master and repeat over and over and over and over again, right? Yeah. And the verbiage of it rarely changes, right? So the minute someone asks you about, hey, but the lending, how's that? You go into your spiel.
And I go to my spiel. You want me to go into my spiel?
So I want to hear your spiel.
Okay.
Because that's your pitch, right? So I want to hear you pitch Kevin pretty much.
Oh my God. I'll be put on the spot. Okay, well, let's say you're a buyer. Have you been qualified for a loan? You haven't pre-qualified?
No.
Okay, I'm going to explain to you a little bit of, the home buying process. The first step is getting pre-qualified. Why? Because it's going to help you understand what programs you qualify for, what interest you're gonna get, what your payments are gonna be, so it makes you an informed buyer. We can go look at properties, but you don't know, say a $400,000 house, how much your payment is gonna be, or $300,000. So once we have everything, you're gonna understand and go out shopping and already know more or less what's in your bank account. It's like going to the mall, but you don't know how much you have in the bank account. That's exactly what it's gonna do for you. You're an informed buyer, and then we can go directly into what you want, the price point that you want. Or sometimes they'll tell me, I'm already being pre-qualified, and I tell them, okay, but how much do you feel comfortable paying a month? Because I want to look for a property that you're comfortable paying for. And there, I set like a difference between myself. A lot of realtors would tell you, oh, $400, let's go home shopping. But I want to make sure that your payment is something that you're comfortable with. So that's why I like to have this conversation. Okay,
That's an excellent technique, by the way, because it helps them understand that you're not chasing money.
Exactly. And then they know.
You're bringing value.
Give you a couple points.
And then they know that you care about them. That you care about them. And it's true, it helps you out too, because a lot of the lenders don't explain anything. So I set myself apart because I know a little bit to explain the difference.
And another part in showing that you care, if they're not pre-qualified, or to break that pre-qualification, the importance, I always say, what is the point of me showing you something, you falling in love with something, that we don't even know if you're going to qualify for, if it's within your and then I have to deal with breaking, you know, like making up your heart. I've been there before, you know. So just putting value in the pre-qualification.
And value in yourself, right? By you saying something like that to a client, are you setting them up for success or for failure? Right? You're setting them up for success, right? They're like, listen, I want to make sure this experience is going to be a great experience for you, right? I wouldn't want to ever break your heart.
That's my job,
right?
to take care of you.
So I want to make sure that, you know, from A to Z, we're going to put you in a position where most of the ride through should be nice and smooth, even though I can't guarantee you, because in real estate, you know, a few things might happen along the way, and you can joke about it a little bit because it's the truth, right? But overall, you're going to try to safeguard them as much as possible. So their experience, remember, at the end of the day, your client's experience is the most important thing. It's what's going to get you notoriety and get you more business and PDLs. And when I say PDLs, it's personally developed leads and referrals and things like that, right? So for you to earn that from your clients, the experience they have going through this is on you. They're on your roller coaster. You know what I mean? So if you don't set the proper expectations and guide them through these things, and that experience ends up being a fairly good experience, it's going to be hard to ask for referrals. And for those realtors that have been here a long time and make good money doing real estate, your clientele base generates a lot of referrals for you over time. You know what I'm saying? And it's part of that, you know?
You didn't finish my spiel.
Sorry. Now you're motivated to finish the
I want
spiel,
to
right?
finish it. Now I said I think I had too much coffee today. I usually don't talk this fast, but I had a lot of coffee. Where did I get from? I don't always talk this fast. Be quiet. Okay, let me go back to my spiel. The most important part, I'll explain what they need to get pre-qualified. I'll explain what my lender does, and then I'll ask, hey, can they reach out to you? Because if I tell them the phone number, they're never gonna call the lender. So I'll be like, the first step is getting pre-qualified. This is what the bank is gonna look at to verify, to kind of get an idea of how much you qualify for. They're gonna look at your credit score, they're gonna look at your debt to income ratio, and they're gonna look at, what was the last thing? Now I forgot my spiel. Your
Debt
income.
to income.
Debt to income. Yeah, they're gonna look at your debt to income and your liabilities. Sorry, they're gonna look at how much money you make, your credit score, and your liabilities. And they'll be like, "Oh, really?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, the credit score, you know, it helps you with the interest rate. The debt to income is really important." And I'll explain to them the whole tax thing. I'll be like, "It's based on how much
real quick.
you're claiming in your
Ken, how's
taxes."
you doing so far?
It's more than I would prefer.
Too much. I never get to.
I love it.
No, but this helps
I
me.
fight with her all the time.
This
She's
helps me
not wrong,
pre-qualify.
but it's more than what I thought.
This helps me pre-qualify. Why? Because a lot of people would tell you, yeah, I want to get pre-qualified, but this helps me pre-qualify to see, because if they're not claiming anything in their taxes, and oh no, I only claimed $10,000. I extended a little bit so I can understand the client. Whatever, I'll talk about that. Then I'll be like, I have a great team that I work with. You know, he's been in the business for a long time. They'll reach out to you. It's a very simple process. It's a 3-step process. I've incorporated that into my spiel. It's a 3-step process. They'll give you a call, explain to you how the process works, and they'll have an email that they'll send you, and it's just 3 simple things. They'll check your credit score, you'll fill out an application, and then you ask for a few documents. And then
Look, perfect example, keeping it super simple.
Yeah.
Right? That's attractive to your client. It's like, oh my God, I was so worried there's gonna be this crazy thing. It actually is, but they don't need to know all that, right? How simple it just made it seem.
Super.
What do you mean? You're just gonna
3 steps.
pull my credit, fill out an application, and I'm pretty much on my way?
But to what she's
That's
saying,
it?
to what she's saying is correct, because I think we all have to understand the masking of title, the masking of lending, because you have to answer those simple questions and then hand the baton to the other people.
Guys, sell your lender, sell his process, sell his support, right? And for those that are not familiar with it, who here has worked with Kevin? Only a handful of people? Well, how many of you have closed deals, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay.
Most of us? Okay. So if you haven't, give Kevin an opportunity to work with you. He's great. I've only heard amazing things from Kevin. The structure he has, the support, the follow-up system that he has in place. I did mortgages for 6 years, so I know and I appreciate a lot of what he brings to the table to make that client experience a good experience. Okay? And I'm not trying to, say, hey, don't use anybody else ever, even though Kevin probably would want me to just say, just use him. But, I want you to be, if you haven't given him an opportunity to help him and help yourselves, definitely give him an opportunity. But before you even start working with a client and then just throw it at him, call Kev. Be like, hey, Kev, tell me some of just the initial things like Adelis already knows. you know, that you need to do, or about your process that you want me to share with the client to soft sell what you do. You know, like she understands already it's a simple 3-step process, right? How'd you figure that out? Kevin told you, right? You know, so why, right? Because she had an opportunity to chit chat with him. He explained that to her, and now she applies it to that part of the pitch, right? When she's going over that with a client.
And I would say also, if you could have a lender, right, or somebody that's pre-qualified, but you want the client to keep an open mind, right? His rate might not be the same rate that Kevin could give him.
And you can, I use that. You sell
Yeah, and
it
they're
to
gonna appreciate that. Listen, if you're not tied up to that lender, I wanna make sure you get the best rate possible. I know if a lender, I wanna make sure you compare your offers to make sure you get the best price possible. And that's the opportunity to introduce Kevin too. And the great thing about Kevin.
Most people, are they going to a bank or something like Kevin?
That's a big selling point too. They're going to a bank.
Yeah,
They're going to a bank. They're
yeah.
going to a bank. For you guys to understand something real quick, when you go through one bank, they either fit the mold or they don't.
Exactly.
Right? When you go through a guy like Kev, how many banks do you work with right now?
13.
13 banks. And guess what? He knows all those banks inside out and what their products are and what they offer and what the qualifications are and probably a lot of the underwriting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So Kev's gonna be your safeguard initially to look at what bank to possibly put that client with, that the process is gonna be as smooth as possible.
Right.
You know?
And the biggest thing with the bank is like, to them, they're not in the business to do mortgage. You know, they don't make the most of the money doesn't come from mortgages, right? They do other things. When you're working with a mortgage broker, that's what they do, 100%.
Yeah.
So they're more knowledgeable. They could, you know, attend to your client more. Instead of calling a 1-800 number, you probably not getting in contact with the
Also for
lender.
your clients, you can benefit him because he has more options than one. You know what I mean? So he literally will know his banks better. And for that particular client with this set of criteria, which like Deani was just saying, everybody's on a case by case, every client's different, every client's criteria is different, whether it varies by a little bit or not, you know. He's very familiar with all those criteria and how they apply to a bank and whether banks are gonna give it a harder time than others, and he's gonna try to place him in a situation where the whole process is smooth because he doesn't want any headaches, right? So you wanna have that in mind too.
Just a quick thing I want to inject here. So I worked at a bank for 5 years, you know, just customer service selling. And I wanted to buy a house 5 months ago. And I called the bank that I've been with since 2005, right? And, you know, till now, Space Coast Credit Union.
Over the phone.
Over the phone. And I mean, I've done this a million times. I've done their whole spiel, right? So I said, hey, you know, not thinking it's going to be an issue. I want to buy a house. And within less than 60 seconds, the guy denied me with a little smirk over the phone, okay? And I will tell you at that point, I was done because I knew nothing. I didn't know the difference. I mean, I'm just an accountant, right? So I don't know anything about lending, mortgage, and all that stuff. I just know if you mention it, I'm going to put you over there. But nothing more than that. So I go to work with this long face, and my boss calls me in the office and said, what's going on? And I told them, and they're like, what are you doing? Don't go to the bank. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't go to the bank. If you're going to do something, whatever it may be, you try to do it with the people that you have the most relationship with, right? So you're not going to go to a brand new person do something as important as buying a house or, you know, going into war. You want somebody to have your back, right? That you really know. So the lady was, no. She breaks it down to me what a mortgage broker is, what this, like. So I'm still iffy because I'm like, that has nothing to do. My credit is still the same. My income is still the same. It's not going to make a difference because I'm thinking, you know, they're looking at the same set of information,
But
right?
do you know what is denying you? Or what denied you in that case?
The guy said, you're not going to qualify. That was his response.
That's it, right.
It's like,
you see,
you're not going to qualify.
And Kev will probably testify to this. When I was a mortgage broker.
Wait. I'm sorry. The bottom line is I got the loan by calling the guy that my boss told me to call. Okay, I'm living in the house now, and that's why I'm a realtor. Because that's why I'm a realtor. Because in my circle of people, accountants, most, you know, the ones that are not, you know, wealthy, whatever. They were in the same boat as I am. They would call the bank, get denied, and just go back home moping. They had no clue. And I know that because I called a few of them before my boss spoke to me. And called a few of them afterwards, and they were all in the same boat. So needless to say that I'm a brand new realtor too. I think I'm here a month. I'm not sure yet.
Welcome.
So thank you. and I have a load of people waiting to sell and buy all sorts of stuff, right?
Good.
So I have 2 right now that I'm buying. So just for that little experience that I had.
Yep.
Is what I'm using. That same experience is what I'm using to get everybody qualified for their mortgage. Same experience.
Awesome. I mean, that's amazing. And sometimes, you could turn a negative into a positive. Right?
But I'm just saying that a lot of people don't know. They really don't. I mean, we're here in this room and we're used to a certain environment, but I kid you not, a lot of people don't know what these guys do.
Yeah.
Or can do, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people don't know.
And there's there's a lot of people hearsayers that think they know because they went through it and there's no way. Like if someone was to come to you and be like, hey, do you think I get qualified for a mortgage? At first hand, if you didn't go through what you've already gone through, you might have been like, man, don't even waste your time.
Yeah, I'm like, call it Bank of America, man.
Because why? You already had that feeling about it. You know what I mean?
Go to Space Coast, they got you.
Unfortunately, a lot of people deal with that and they don't reach out to look at what is available with a ton of products that are out there. And listen, the mortgage side of things is starting to open up more. You're probably going to start getting more investors into mortgages again, which in turn opens up more products. And you'll see sometimes unique things starting to come out that maybe at the current time are not being offered. When I was doing mortgages, if I was to tell you some of the products that we had out there, you guys would think I'm crazy. They were doing sometimes loans for 125% LTV with minimum down payment. Because why? They already knew that the houses were going to have equity in 6 months. So they were like, yeah, I'll lend you an extra 25%. You know what I mean? So imagine, it's different. It's different times. And a lot of that stuff is anchored by the lenders and the investors that are on the back end. But guys, we've still got a few more things to cover. I want to respect everybody's time. Let's try to run through the rest of the key techniques. But hey, thank you for everybody participating, giving some feedback. Great stories, right? Great firsthand things that are going on. Active listening, right? A lot of people, I think, when you refer to, hey, that guy's a hell of a salesman, right? What do you think about? You think about the guy being a good talker, right? Hey, that guy can probably talk the crap about anything. Actually, best salespeople in the world are very good listeners, right? They're able to pick up on things by talking to someone in a few words that the other person is not even paying attention to, And that way, the words that come out next are more meaningful, So you have to be actively listening and paying attention to the words that your client is saying and not just be in a daze or looking at your phone or on Instagram. You know what I mean? Because those things are not going to allow you to focus in on that conversation the way you should. It's like situational awareness. If you're in downtown getting off your car and you're parking and you're going to be walking somewhere, you're going to be paying attention to the corners, the people around you, right? Because what happens is you could potentially get mugged or something bad could happen to you. So your situational awareness goes up, right? You're not going to be goofing off unless you're in a big group. You're going to be paying attention if you're by yourself, right? When you're on the phone and you're talking to a client, it's the same concept, okay? You got to be locked in. Even though you don't want to show that you're locked in, you want to be kind of casual about the conversation, you're really paying attention to every little detail that's coming out, the tones, this, that, right? So active listening is a big thing. Effective speaking, and that goes a lot with voice inflection, right? So when you guys hear me speak, hopefully I do a decent job of it. I try to present words to you, right? I try to pick, and I use mortgages sometimes as an example. When you go to a house and you're trying to do a listing presentation with someone, I use that as an example. And someone tells you, hey, I want to sell my house for $500,000. But Jairo, you were here at 9 o'clock at night the night before, and you did the comparables. And you found out that house, the most you're probably going to get for it is like $420. What do you tell that person?
Listen, I'm just saying you want to get the highest price possible for a house. If I was in your shoes, I would want the same. But at the same time, houses are sold, what the market is telling us right now, the house is worth X amount. Why? Because the market determines how much a house is worth based on what's sold around your neighborhood. This house 3 blocks away sold for $400. If you were a buyer, right, and you see this house for $400 and yours for $500, and they look exactly the same, they have the same things, will you pay over $100,000 for the same house? I kind of try to flip it on them, like. Do
you take your laptop? Do you open it up sometimes? Do you show them?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta show them.
Right?
They're very visual. You gotta show them. They can't just take your word for it. They don't trust you. They don't know you most of the time. So you gotta show them. Look, this is what I mean.
So something, and George talks about this a lot too. Don't necessarily always, when you're in a listing presentation, sit across the table from them. Yes. Sit next to them. You know what I mean? Open up your laptop. Even though he knew the comparables are at about $420. He didn't go over there and said, no, your house is 420, and not have any substance behind it. Right? Say, hey, you know what? 500,000. Man, let's see what we could get. Open up your laptop. Let's look at comparables together, like the night before he did on his own. He already kind of knows where this is gonna go, but you're taking the time to discover it with them.
And quick tip, don't ever in the listing agreement, I don't put the price. If you put the price, you kind of already telling them, this is what I think your house should be worth, and that's it. You kind of want to, you know what you're gonna list it at, but you want to like kind of do it with them, like bring them to the process. Like, look, based on what I'm showing you, I think this is the price that we should list it, and you put it there. If you have the price already, they're gonna feel like, oh, look, Mr. Expert telling me what my house is worth.
Exactly what this technique is about. Good point, right? So the connecting and discovering together, same team, is that concept, right? It's bringing them into the fold. It's making them part of the experience. It's experiencing it together, so you guys create that bond as I'm on your side. You know, I'm here to show you the way, but you're part of this. Yeah. You know what I mean? And instead of coming in like Mr. Know-It-All, like you're telling me how to sell my house, like I don't like that. I don't vibe with you, right? Yeah. I have my own input on this, and you got to respect my input, right? And that's kind of the defense mechanism that you want to try to avoid. Ask the right probing questions, right? I have a huge pet peeve with this. Okay, I've done phone sales for such a long time. If I'm on the phones with you and we're talking about bro, T-Mobile customer service always comes to mind when I do.
Oh my
you know
God.
What I mean? Oh my God, they've gotten better though.
T-Mobile too.
They've gotten better.
I used to make calls and what? I can't hear you was the worst thing. If you work in sales, you need good reception, even if it's more expensive.
Oh.
That will make the difference between you having a good conversation. Because you're here. Hey, no, yeah, but this is and they haven't heard anything you said. Oh my God.
But you know, I tend to speed the calls up because I come in, I know what they're gonna be asking, so I kind of give them a little rundown of everything right from the get, you know? And that way I'm saving myself a little bit of time. And your next question is something I just told you? It's like, what? You didn't just hear what I just told you? Like, you know?
Connect.
Like, why are you probing me with the wrong question and wasting my time? You know what I'm saying? First of all, you should have been paying attention to me. You know what I mean? And second of all, don't ask me something I just answered for you. That means you're not listening. You know what I mean? So those are my pet peeves. You know what I mean? I know that I'm going to be repeating things with you along the way. I'm going to have to slow things down for you because you're not on your game. You know what I mean? And you're not always going to run into someone like me. But when you do, what are you going to do? You're going to lose that client? Because you're not listening, you're not asking the right questions, you're not connecting quick enough with them, because maybe they're super busy. You know, Kev, when you have to do something personal during work hours, how quickly do you try to do that? You can't even, right? But man, if you just needed to take care of something that you wanted to do in like 5 minutes time, right? Can you be on the phone for more than 5-10 minutes? That's a little tiny window. You just need to take care of that thing right away. You know, and now you're gonna hang up and call later and deal with it like on a Saturday or something, right? You just don't have the time. You know what I mean? I'm like that. You know what I mean? So if you get a guy like that that's, hey, I'm calling you, I need to take care of this quick. This is all the information you need. What else do you need? And you're just not on point. That guy can't work with you. Wow. He's gonna be like, yo, you're not the guy for me. You know what I mean? I need a guy that's on my tone, that's on my speed. You know what I mean? That I could give him the things that I know he needs. And what else do you need from me, if anything? Good. Hey, call me later at 5. I gotta go.
You gotta recognize that, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Those guys, man, if you're not on point and you don't listen and you are not asking the right questions quickly and know that you're being time closed, you will not be able to work with those type of individuals. And those are really good clients because they're on point. Those are the type of ones you want sometimes.
The higher end, like I've been calling more in the $1 million, and the higher end people are more like that.
Bro, you have to be on point.
What's wrong with this guy?
What is it?
It's our side. From the other office.
Yeah, this whole balcony connects all the offices, guys. So
next time if you see him, just get out of time.
All right, so back to this. Ask for, okay, build rapport, stay on track. We talked about that. Don't veer off too much. Guys, always have a little pad in front of you, right? Yeah. When the conversation starts, you know, it might not go anywhere. You don't necessarily have to write anything down right away, right? But once you get past the initial phase of the combo and you feel you're going to start really going into a conversation, write down the person's name and start jotting down notes of what's going on in that conversation. If you don't have that down packed, your human brain is impossible to retain every single conversation, every little detail of every single client. It's not going to happen.
I also, at the beginning, before it even gets into the sale portion of it, I take mirroring notes. Like, tone or whatever, like one word or something that will make me break down the person like further. I'm like, wait a minute, you know? So sometimes I do that, or elderly, you know, just in case, because I've been calling so many people, I know I'm not going to market this person digitally or something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, no, those are all like key little notes you're telling yourself. So when you refer back to your notes, you have kind of like a strategy that's built into the way you work that, you know, kind of accommodates that individual a little bit better from your experience. Excellent. Great job, right? But again, whatever notes you're taking, guys, that works for your process, for you to hand it off to Kev, for that a customer experience is crucial. You know, and if you're not taking those notes and you expect to have it all up here, man, you're gonna be one of those people that if I call with the quick, you're gonna be like, who are you again? You know, and oh man, I can't work with you. You know what I'm saying? You gotta know. And the only way you do that is by writing down notes as you're talking to people. Okay, especially those initial conversations.
From your experience, when you call and they don't pick up the phone, you know, you leave like a message or you call them back?
And what I do personally, initial calls, never spoken to the person before, I personally do not leave messages. Me, personally. But again, that varies from person to person, and different people have tried different strategies, and you know, there's complex contact strategies where you leave a voicemail sometimes and you don't others, and you know, they're coupled with emails, and you know, if you're doing something like that, then you might get more effective inside.
When it comes to the voicemail, keep it like simple or keep like trying to keep
Think about it, every minute you spend on a voicemail is a minute less you're spending dialing somebody new. And if you're not really getting the return that you should be getting out of all those minutes you're leaving voicemails versus the minutes you could be spending calling other prospects, then how effective are you being by leaving voicemails?
Would you recommend to do it?
I don't recommend to do it because those are time and you could be reaching out to more people. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't let it ring more than 3 times.
Well, like sometimes you call those like super
You know?
busy people, you know, and there's like a huge potential, and they basically just like you.
If
do with
you've made
commercials,
contact, and you've built a conversation already, then that's a different thing. Okay? Well, I'm talking about the initial contact with someone you've never spoken to, and you're reaching out to for the first time. I do not leave a
I
voicemail.
close your door.
Okay? And plus,
You're like, oh, they call
that live conversation initially is very impactful. Whereas if you're leaving too much on the voicemail, you kind of, you know, they're like, oh, now I know who it is. I'm going to get around to it. You know what I mean? But they procrastinated and maybe they never really get around to it. And they avoid you every time you call. You know what I'm saying? So to me, in the initial calls, I don't ever leave voicemail. Once you've established that, you've gone past that, then yeah, I would leave a voicemail depending on the client. All right.
I try to leave curiosity. I do this all the time. I'm like, hey, it's Kevin. Give me a call back real quick. In case
I
you
do
lost
that.
it. 305
That's funny, I've been doing that.
Hey, I got that too.
Hey, Mike, call me back. I didn't have one for you.
But that's a quick one. That's a quick
Yeah, they
one.
call you
Right?
back
It's
like,
effective.
oh,
It's
you
quick.
know me?
And the truth is, I've never given them my number, but like, hey, in case you lost it, 305 588.
Like, whoa, this is Kevin guy. I lost his number. Oh, that is most important. Maybe he's an old school buddy that I can go hang with or something. All right. So, guys, any questions on that? No? Great. We're pressed for time, so let's try to keep going through. So here we go. Phone call framework. Now, this is just generalized, guys. I don't want you to look at this as a script. It's more to build the right mindset. Please feel free to customize this stuff to your own. Delis, you probably have a different phone call script than what I have on here at this point, right? Considering you've been doing it so long.
I mix it up.
You mix it up a little bit,
But this-
right? Variations of it,
This
right?
is very important though, like to have a script that you use to master.
You know what it is? I don't like the term script because I don't want you guys to be robots on the phone. And every conversation is organic, right? And it veers off. And you know how I can tell someone's on the script? I just throw a little monkey wrench in it.
But
That's it. Trip. Hey, just a little trip. They don't know where to go. It's like if their script says, person will then say this, ask this question. Okay. And in the middle of all that, I go, where are you from? They're like,
That's not my script.
that's where I'm from. You know, like you guys can't lean too heavily on the script. You know what I mean? The script is there to guide you. The scripts are there to just create a little bit of a framework for you. You know.
Let me ask you something. In adjusting your script or personalizing it, do you focus on how you would get sold and then sell? Because
Nope. No, I don't
You don't
bring
think of
me into
yourself?
the equation because every person you talk to is different. So by you automatically bringing you into the equation, you're going to cater more to the people that are just like you versus a wider range or a wider audience. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's important for you to just keep it wider.
I've closed that door. I'm like, oh, I would never go for this. You know what I mean?
What you would go for doesn't mean that the person you're talking to wouldn't go for it.
No,
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
why
I have a cousin of mine, OCD to the max, okay? He's in the 1 percentile. I told him I will never work with him as a realtor, a lender, or anything else for that matter. I don't want the commission from working with him because he's that type of person. So he's like constantly, when we talk about something, he's like, but how would people even go for that? Because they're not you. You know what I mean? But that doesn't even make sense because if you look at this and you look at the rates and where they're going and da-da-da, they're not you. They don't do all that.
So shut that out.
You know what I'm saying? If he was to try to do what we do, he'll be horrible at it. Because you'll be sharing all that with every single client and no client will want to do anything because you're creating all these concerns and issues. You know what I mean? So you got to be mindful of that. You gonna say that? No? All right,
With
cool.
the scripts, I'll tell you my experience because when I started, I was clueless. It's important to have a script so you know the right questions to ask. I feel like that's why it's important.
Yes.
Because sometimes you'll forget what to ask, and there's important questions that throughout the conversation you don't ask. But I used to think you had to ask every single question and you had to stay on track. And scripts, if you're reading exactly, they know. Like I've had people tell me, stop talking to me from a script. And that made me realize I was... Yeah, they know because a lot of these realtors have the same Keller Williams script or the other script or the Mike Ferry script. So you have to know the questions to ask, but make the conversation sound genuine. Talk like you're talking to your friend. That's what works for me. I'm very cool about the way that I ask
Works
things.
for everybody. You're going to be way more effective on the phones if you could have those genuine conversations versus a script.
But still know what questions you need to ask because even if you're having a cool conversation, this is still business. So you have to know
Get you in track.
what
So-
to ask them.
Leaning into that, right? The basic things when you have a conversation, right, is you need to have an introduction. You need to state the reason for your call. You're going to connect and discover. Okay, you're going to tie it into your benefits, and you're going to ask for the sale. That's really the basics of it. Okay. An introduction, I give an example there. Hello, I'm looking for. Pleasure to meet you. My name is, and I'm with this company. How are you doing today? Basic introduction, right? Being polite, being proper, having manners, right? It's harder to be rude to someone that's approaching you that way, right? So it's effective.
Quick tip, if I'm calling John Smith, I don't ask for John Smith. I ask for John. I think it's more personal when you ask for the first name. I learned that from Jordan Beckford again. That's a great book, by the way.
That book is really good.
He talks about tonality, it's about your tone, and using high pitch, low pitch when you ask a certain question, and and also
Always say their name. Like
Yes,
that
first
book taught
name.
me a lot. Instead of being like I used to say, hi, is this the owner of X home? I mean, if their name is not there, you can't really say the
Yeah.
name. But that killed it because as soon as you said, hi, is this the owner?
Then they kind of know the angle that you're coming at. They assume what it is and they hang up.
I trick them. I'm like, hey, John, hey,
Hey.
Joe, hey, Jose, and then they think you're the friend.
Yeah,
And then
and
like, oh,
connect
yeah,
with
it is.
That helps me a lot. Things change
Sometimes, I vary on it. I catch myself doing it a lot, and sometimes I wish I wouldn't. But I'll sometimes be like, "Hey, is this Mary?"
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "Hey, Mary,"
Yeah.
right?
Why ask?
And I still do that.
I do it too.
And imagine, I have years of experience, and I still catch myself doing that. But a good technique is don't ask for the person. Assume it's the person, and let them correct you. Oh no, this is not Mary. You know what I mean? But if you assume it's Mary, most of the time it is Mary.
So it's not. What if it isn't Mary?
Then they'll tell you. They'll tell you. You think
She'll tell you it's not Mary. You know? But if you assume it's Mary, she'll be like, hi, because she doesn't know if she's spoken to you before. So she doesn't want to seem like you recognize her voice, and now all of a sudden she's going to tell you it's not Mary. You know what I mean?
Hey, Mary, how are you?
Second thing is state the reason for your call. Super important, guys, right? So after you do your introduction, how are you doing today, whatever the case might be, state the reason why you're calling. All right, hey, hi, I'm giving you a call because of this, whatever it is, the scenario. Sometimes if you're calling a FSBO, you got to be a little careful with the reason for your call. You might have to disguise it sometimes due to the fact that they don't necessarily always want to be talking to a realtor at that point, right? So you might need to, maybe in that scenario, alter that a little bit. But for the most part, even in what I do with recruitment, I always say, hey, I'm Mike Blanco, blah, blah, blah. I'm giving you a call from the Real Estate Placement Center. How's your day doing today? Yeah, I'm doing great. Hey, reason for my call is I know you recently got your license here in the state of Florida to practice real estate. Congratulations, by the way. That's my reason for my call, right? So at least we establish why I'm giving you a call, right? Early on, make sure we're both on the same page, right? The last thing I want to do is start to talk to someone and still not know why they're calling you. Has that ever happened to anybody? Right?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever, hey, hi, this is John, and I'm giving you a call from so-and-so. How's your day doing? Yeah, I'm doing good, John. Hey, listen, there's some things that we do that are that. Why are you calling me? Why are you calling me? You know what I'm saying? Like you want to understand what is the purpose of this call, right? You're losing my interest quickly. So always state the reason for your call in most cases. And then the most important thing is to connect and discover, and this is where your questions come into play, right? Usually when you're connecting and discover, this is where you're going to probe and understand where they're at in their ladder and the things that they're looking to gain and the things that they fear losing, right? From their situation based on how it's relative to real estate, for example. And for that, you have a series of questions that you usually need to probe with to understand where their situation is and what their goals are, right? Best way to put it. So the series of questions that you have, whether it's 10, 15, whatever it is, you're gonna go through those. In reality, sometimes they disclose the answers to a lot of them just by you saying how are you doing and why you're calling. They'll be like, oh yeah, me and my husband, you know, we're looking for a house, and they go into like a little spiel, and you're just like, has a husband, you know, was looking to purchase 3 months, all right, cool, they're pre-qualified, all right, cool, right? These are all questions you don't need to go back now and ask.
Right, don't go to the script.
Please, please do not go back and repeat these things. So are you guys married? Have you ever been pre-qualified? Hello? 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 Let me call him back. Let me call him back because this is a hot one. This is a good one, right? Darn, they haven't answered me in 6 days. I've called them 3 times. You know? Yeah, they don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? They don't want to. They want to talk with someone that is paying attention.
All the time
right?
they didn't answer my call.
Now you know. Now you know, right? Along the way, you're connecting and discovering, or at the end of connecting and discovering, you need to tie it into your benefits, right? So what does that mean, right? Once you understand where they're at and where they're trying to get to, now you could show them how working with you helps them achieve that, right? And that's where you start to tie in how you help with that goal. And that's very powerful, right? Because if you just told me, hey, I'm trying to do this, this is the situation I'm in, these are my goals, and now I tell you, well, listen, to help you with this, I can provide this to get you there. And I've been able to do it with a lot of people before you. How powerful is that? That automatically is like, whoa, hey, I like this, right? I like what you're selling, right? We could talk more. I got a little bit more time for you. Hold on, let me take my lunch break, right? And they want to talk to you, right? Now, there's a technique there where you could go over the entire connect and discover, which is what I recommend for newer people. So you kind of, hey, you know, you kind of like doing needs analysis in a way, right? What you need, what you're looking for, you're purchasing a home, whatever, right? And then you go over your benefits, how working with you could address all of that, right? That's one way of doing it. Another way to do it, which takes a little bit more product knowledge and a little bit more comfortable with what you're going to, and you maybe have done this a couple times, you could, as they present the information to you, you could start to tie it into one of the benefits that you have, and then they present more information to you, and you tie it into a different benefit that you have. So you're building value as you're having the conversation and you're going through everything, you know? So either technique is effective, you know, but one takes a little bit more knowledge and more understanding of what you're talking about to do it as you go through it versus analyzing everything that was just shared with you and maybe reviewing everything you get offered out. Okay? So keep that in mind. That's really the connect and discover part. Guys, that's the most important part in what you do. If you don't build value, people are not going to want to work with you. What do I get out of it? How are you really helping me? How are you helping me achieve the higher ladder? Are you really doing anything to help me out? No, you're wasting my time. Have a great day. I'll call you back another time. That's pretty much where you're at. Okay?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, you're saying to disclose maybe your value when you can offer them. From the scripts that or people that I've heard speak and all that,
they kind of just go straight to asking for the listing appointment, and then that's when they present their value and their strategy. So what?
Okay, you can try to get me a listing appointment, and then when I tell you, well, I don't know, I'm ready for all that, but we are looking. If anything, I'll give you a call back someday. Okay? What are you gonna say?
You gotta take time away from
No, but you gotta build value.
No.
You have to build value for me to change my mind there,
You
right?
do it before.
So, I mean, you could ask for the listing appointment whenever you want. You could ask for the sale whenever you want. Now, have you built enough value to get the sale, to get the appointment? Because if you're not building value with me, why am I going to give you the time over the other guy that just called me that did build value and what he could provide me, that I did set up an appointment with? Why should you even have an appointment? You look at it from the client perspective, right? So you got to be careful that you can do whatever you want to do. You can ask for a sale whenever you want, but are you going to get results for asking a sale too early without building some value in what you're doing? My experiences are no. Now, at the same token, you don't want to maybe let out all of your stuff out on the table trying to get that deal done in one assumption of sale. You want to keep a little bit in the reserves because guess what? When you ask for the sale, it's okay to get a no. But find out why. And then you still have a few more things that you could throw out to maybe get them a little bit closer to the yes, right? So that's also a technique. I call that more identifying, isolating, and overcoming an objection. Later on, when you guys maybe come to another sales training and you're a little bit more advanced, maybe you've applied some of the things you learned here today, we'll talk about that just individually, which is identifying, isolating, and overcoming an objection. And that'll help you kind of get those sales. And it's okay, guys, to ask for a sale and not get it. I expect that when I negotiate with people. Do you assume that maybe you're going to get it right off the first ask or something? Yeah, you could assume it. You could do it with confidence. But am I taken back when someone tells me no? No. I see it's part of the process. Okay, great, no. Well, Jay, just out of curiosity, what's stopping you from being able to make that decision? Oh, the thing is, Mac, we had a concern because when you explained this, well, guess what? I'm finding out what it is. I'm going to identify it, right? I'm going to ask him if that's the only thing stopping him from doing this. And then once I've established that, I'm going to bring out something else that I haven't told him to satisfy that or be able to then ask for the sale again or assume the sale then to try to get it then. Right? But that's all part of the process. So I'm not taken back when someone tells me no, I'm not crushed. I don't show it. It doesn't come out my pores. I just see it like something casual. And I downplay it. That's pretty much it. Okay? And then ask for the sale, part of what we were just talking. It varies in the situations depending on what you're doing. Setting an appointment. You could do some closing questions, which is asking for the sale. Hey, so what do you think about the opportunity? Are you ready to pursue the reason why they're doing this? Are you available to meet tomorrow at this time to discuss this further in person? You know what I mean? Whatever, right? These are all assumptions of sales. This is all you getting a temperature check on your client, whether or not they're ready to move forward to the process of why you're calling. You know what I mean? So don't be scared of asking for a sale. A lot of people, believe it or not, are really good at going through everything till they get to this point. Petrified. You've been warm, you've been friendly, you've been great, you've been informative, you've been everything. I've told you yes to everything you're asking me, and then all of a sudden, you gotta ask for the appointment, and you go into a show, and you're just like, like you're about to do something bad. Yeah. Is there any way possibly that we could maybe meet tomorrow? Please don't say no. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a nervousness about it, right? Take that out of your head. Downplay it. Who cares? Just ask. If they're not ready, they won't. They'll tell you why. You try to work through it as a person. And if you move forward, you move forward. Don't put so much stress on yourself about it. Don't make it a bigger thing than it is. Just ask for a sale. Ask for it 2 or 3 times in a sale. Who cares? At the end of the day, if you get a yes eventually, it's good. You know what I mean? And there's techniques to that and everything, but that's pretty much part of that process.